This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leaders, today I'm honored to have Lois Melbourne on the show. After spending 18 years as CEO and co-founder for a workforce analytics and talent management software company, she got into writing some pretty awesome books that we're going to be talking about today. Lois, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today and what got you so inspired to write these books.
Yes, I co-founded a software company with my husband, and it was focused around those workforce analytics, giving very dry data, a very powerful and graphical presentation. And it was one of those companies started in the 90s out of our house and grew to a global company with around 3,000 name brand customers around the world. Wow. And it was in that time that I got exposed to so many different careers because of helping companies look at their talent management and their succession planning and the trends in their workforce and really got to see people that were good in their job as far as like it was a good fit and those that were in a misfit. And so that gave me kind of a big inspiration to start working with kids, mentoring a lot and trying to help them figure out their career paths, et cetera, and gave a good focus on, you know, what's life 2.0 after we sold the business. And that kind of led me to writing and working with my nonprofit that helps kids explore careers. And so kind of planted the seed in tech, but also where people meet.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And, you know, as you're learning, you know, are working through this company and going through this process and learning about all the different careers and things that are out there, what maybe inspired you to kind of move towards, you know, education and teaching and writing and things like that?
Well, a big part of it was I started bringing in interns into the company and finding really bright students that had no idea what they were going to do in their career. You know, they're going to college, they picked a major, maybe they liked the major, maybe they didn't, but they had, so many of them had no idea what they were going to do after they graduated. And I really felt it was part of our responsibility as employers to these interns and managers of those interns to kind of help them see different avenues that they could pursue based on what they like. So that was kind of the seed, if you will, you know, working out that kind of exploration, and that opened up all kinds of things. While I was in school, I really wanted to write. So I kind of think the technology company was almost a life enabler to get me back to what I thought I wanted to do when I was a little kid, which was write.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's kind of cool that you were able to, I guess, use your your company to do what you always wanted to do, which was write. What's your process like for writing? Because I know some people have different processes where they, schedule it a time like it's their job and they're going to do it between a certain hours, or other people do it with inspiration. What is your process like?
Well, I need to get rid of the clutter of the day first.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of people, they wake up and they immediately write it. And for me, my brain is too active when I first wake up, be the most creative. So I exercise and then I get rid of any of the noise and, scan through emails. Is there anything that I have to do? Are there any calls that I have to make? And then that helps me kind of settle down and write. And I'll choose, some days are more research days and other days are more writing days. And then there's a non-stop habit of writing on any piece of paper or notes on my phone, etc., ideas that I get or quotes, or, I'll see somebody and think, oh, that's a good character and we'll capture something. There's always a little bit of writing going on.
Mm. So tell me about your research days, because, being the fact that we have a lot of listeners that aren't writers and have never written before, when you think of like a fictional story, you're not really thinking about, writing a research paper. You're thinking about you just make it up. But there's a lot of research that goes into writing a fictional story, right?
Yes. So Moral Code, my published novel, is about ethical AI. Mm-hmm. And it was published in 2022. So I was doing a lot of research. My husband and my son were very much diving into AI, and my son in college and my husband in a new startup, and we were constantly talking about what was going on within around networks and machine learning, and so I was absorbing a lot of it, but then Ross and I collaborated a lot on that book. He would explain something to me and we brainstorm what might happen as, with a character utilizing that technology, and he would teach me a lot of the underpinnings, but then I would need to go and research more. So that I could then create good illustrative examples of how, the AI was learning, or what it could do or what it couldn't do. And so it was a lot of MIT's, newsletters and articles and Wired magazine and anybody that was pumping things out at the time about AI and nanotechnology, et cetera, so that I could feel well versed in it in order to then make it illustrative so that someone could understand it. Needed to write as a book that wasn't just for technologists. I wanted a very consumable book that anyone that was curious about AI or just about ethics could read the book and learn from it, as well as be entertained. So it did take a lot of research.
So tell us a little bit about what this book's about and who your audience was.
So I really wanted to make a story that gave voice to the growth of an AI. I'd like to say, if I could build an AI, and what would it do? And it would be what I consider the most important thing we could possibly deliver to the world, which would be protection of kids. My AI is constrained fully with a moral operating system. Mm-hmm. Ellie is the most ethical AI you can imagine. and with an imperative of protecting kids. And so the protagonist is both the engineer that created Ellie and Ellie herself, the AI, and their methods. Some people may doubt a little bit. There's a little vigilante element into it, but really the story is about what would you do if you could eliminate the trauma that is created for children or inflicted upon children. If you could eliminate that, and what lengths would you go to do it?
And, when you're thinking about this moral operating system, how much does, a single individual's moral compass, everybody has different morals and different things, even if you do want to protect kids, is there any conflict between like what should go into that and what shouldn't?
It's an interesting process in writing a book. And there are whole elements that I wrote and created that didn't fully make it into the book itself. But, it's that backstory that's needed. So you have to hint at it. And a big part of that was, how would you create the ethical definition? And so in the book, there is a consortium that collects all of the definitions, crowdsourced of what are ethics, what are moral, and what are the training tools that you use to teach those disciplines to people. And they aggregate all of this data from companies and religions and organizations and bring them together and meld out what is considered ethical and where are the boundaries and how do we teach it. And they create, this incredible data set to train the AI. And so there was, at one point, that was a big storyline within the book, but then it could be its own book. Maybe it will be one day. But it only gets explained in and out of the story because I needed more room for the actual action within the book. But that was how we defined the elements of what would go into the moral OS, because it is a quagmire, right? Of whose morality and whose ethical boundaries do we accept? And you have to make decisions sometimes to say these are outliers.
Yeah. So in the book, there's this. I don't know what you call it. I guess a tiny robotic army called Smart Dust. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what how the plot thickens with that?
Yes. So the Smart Dust is created by a company that acquires my Kira and Ellie's company, and they're nanobots, and they are able to coalesce to create objects or disperse. And they are, if you've ever heard of the book Prey, there was nanites in that could come together and pull apart, but they weren't that intelligent. And so the nanites become very, very key. They're very instrumental in the storyline of being able to do surveillance, and which the FBI is using in order to find traffickers, which is where my characters start realizing just how bad this world is for some kids when they start realizing what is going on within the human trafficking world. And so my AI, Ellie, decides to utilize the nanites in a very unique way, and I won't give any spoilers here, but they become a very big part of Ellie to combat abuse and trafficking.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's so cool how you've integrated both the technology with nanobots plus AI and kind of showed how, I mean, it's really like very futuristic of how these technologies are kind of growing in different directions and can work together, but also, maybe put some checks and balances in there as well.
It's fascinating tech. Well, one of the challenges while writing was, we'd be racing down a storyline and thinking, okay, this is going to be 15 years out. And then MIT would announce something where, hey, within 3 years, you're going to have this in your pocket. And it's like, okay, do I fill in my timeline or do I, just write it as if it's common knowledge that this stuff can be used? So that's an interesting thing about writing science fiction that is close to current time, nudging a little futuristic, and working with very plausible tech. We worked diligently to make sure that anything that was created within the storyline was feasible. Maybe not invented yet, but was feasible based on the trajectory of current tech.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say is, we talk about what is feasible, because it seems like with, the rapid advancements that we've had the last, 5 years, that almost anything is feasible, right? And we're getting really close as long as it doesn't violate the laws of physics.
Right, yeah.
With quantum computing right down to, really close, and AI, with ChatGPT and how far that's come, generative AI being so close, self-driving cars, and Tesla just announced their latest update that moves in full self-driving out of beta into what they call supervised or something like that. And it's like it's just going on and on very fast.
Yes, it is.
So tell me a little bit about your book, STEM Club Goes Exploring, and your concept, or what you've been trying to do with writing about STEM.
So I really wanted to create career exploration early in kids, when they're still so curious, and not wait until that college quagmire that I talked about at the beginning, where, kids often can't imagine careers out there if they haven't seen it. So I wanted to open up the questions there, and STEM was my natural place to go. So I started with that book, and it's for that kind of, 8 to 12, 9 to 12-year-old kind of audience of what are the different types of jobs that are out there that are in STEM, and examples of questions that come up is, I would go and speak with schools, and kids would say, well, I don't want to work in software because I don't want to be a programmer. I'm like, wait a minute, there's all kinds of jobs related to software that isn't programming. And so, you have to kind of open up those kinds of ideas. You could go to veterinary school and not become a vet. That might mean that you then go into, the dietary needs for animals, or, so many other types of things. Really kind of trying to open up that mindset, which is something that I encourage leaders to do and professionals to do, is when you talk to kids about jobs, whether it be interns or, take your daughters and sons to work birthday or even at the Thanksgiving dinner table, is talk to kids about all of the different jobs that either you've had or that are at the company that you're at, or things that you can kind of tease out of a kid of what kind of things do they like to do, and then help them kind of brainstorm what type of jobs are that allowing people to live in that space. Oh, I want to be on stage, but I can't sing. All right, well, there's a lot of jobs that kind of take you into that public space. Talk to them about it, brainstorm about it, and that's kind of a fun avenue that I pursue, both within the nonprofit, but then also trying to teach kids and teachers how to think a little bit different about the what do you want to be when you grow up question.
No, I think that's really good. And, I highly encourage, people to go to career fairs. I'm actually going to one on Thursday this week to speak at a middle school to talk about tech, jobs in tech. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing is, I'm going to be trying not to focus on coding, but, I'm going to show some of the things you can do with generative AI when it comes to like images and cybersecurity and things like that are, other jobs that are out there in tech that are interesting and extremely important.
So here's one thing that I challenge tech people to do, and thank you for going and speaking at middle schools. That's one of the best ages to go and talk to them. Is one of the things that keeps girls from pursuing jobs in tech is they think it's a career for loners, and for some, there are some jobs where it's the perfect job for somebody that wants to be a recluse or wants to, is an introvert, doesn't want to deal with a lot of people. But there's a lot of tech jobs that are very interactive and very team-based, especially with any kind of agile, development that are, and that's something that students don't always realize. They get the nerd concept that's been shoved out into, the entertainment world, that a programmer is just, a loner, and that tech jobs are for geeks that don't want to, antisocial, et cetera. And people are going, no, that's not me. I want to work with others. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there. So sometimes it's just a one-liner. It's, technology jobs are not loners. Some of them are. A lot of them aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. So my wife works she's in software project management, and she's gone and talk at some STEM things just to try to encourage, girls to get into technology, and that there's a real opportunity in project management or in, things like that where you do work well with people, and it's important to have those people skills in those jobs, and but you're still making a difference in, with technology.
Right.
So when it comes to, how can leaders, use these type of opportunities with STEM and, reaching and helping kids to help develop their own leadership skills that they can then take back to the workplace?
Well, I often utilize our intern, what I would call our internship core, because we would have, even when we were small, we would still have several interns. We never allowed interns to be admin people, especially tech interns. It's like, give them real stuff. And I would use that as kind of a microcosm to test my young employees or my early career employees as kind of how are you at managing? Because it allowed us to coach them on how to coach the intern. How do you teach them? How do you manage time? How do you give feedback? And then watching how they did that, it was a great development tool. So when you say, how could that be something that helps a young professional looking to further develop, say, hey, what can I do with, like if there's interns there, what can I do to help manage them? And then make sure that they, you have the tools that you need. You know what the company wants from those interns, and you can then really make a difference in those students' lives, as well as, kind of get your foot in the door on the management track if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a really, really good thing, because then you're helping your company with, making a lot of times, just to be fair, we get interns and we don't utilize them to their full potential. We again,
Right.
but because the easy thing to do is to just give them clerical work to do, and but when you utilize an intern to their full potential, I got an example of I guess it was 3 years ago. We had an intern come in, and the original plan was to put them with our help desk team, and they could help troubleshoot PC issues and things like that. But then we found out that this intern had had interest in writing software and doing specifically in PHP code. So we turned them over to a project that it was on our back burner. We weren't even going to probably do it this year. And we just said, hey, why don't you work with, these folks? We'll give you guys an analyst that can give you requirements and help work with you on a regular basis. And this person ended up developing this tool that we still use today, almost in the exact same format that it was when it was created, to help track some information. And it's a really cool software that they built and were able to learn from it, put it on their resume, and they ended up changing their idea, because they were planning on going into maybe IT infrastructure, probably being a server administrator. And then when they did this project, they realized how fun it was to build something with software, and they changed their major, now they're a software engineer, and it set them on a different path, but it also was very helpful for us.
Yes. And, not shying away from the brains that are walking in the door. If you interview well for your interns, you can wind up with some really stellar people. And it's also a great, and some organizations do this well and they know it. They use those interns and that time as an intern as basically a try before you buy if they're going to maybe hire that person once they graduate. And other companies, it's like, oh, it's cheap labor. If you want an admin, then hire an admin. There are also a lot of students that are perfectly happy to say, I will work in an office and I will do your filing and I will, help mark off trouble tickets as done, or whatever little, admin tasks you need. But an internship should be a educational time, and so utilize that brain power. Otherwise, you're wasting time and money and talent.
Right, you're wasting your time, money, and talent, as well as the interns. And it's one of those things where if you invest in it properly, like you said, you can hire these people full time if you find a great opportunity where it's beneficial for both. I teach part time at Winthrop University. I've seen many of my students get internships, when they were junior, and they couldn't, obviously convert full time, but they were given a signing bonus as an intern to come back as soon as they graduate. And, that's a great opportunity, because they made an impression to the company, but the company was also made an impression to them where they were interested.
Right. Because if you treat interns as admin people, those people aren't going to want to come back and work for you full time. And absolutely, they're going to tell their co-students, their colleagues, no, I don't know, it's a pretty boring place to work.
Exactly.
So it kills your employer brand.
And they're going to remember that, long into the future, when maybe they've got 4 or 5, 6 years of experience and they're looking for another job. They're like, yeah, I'm not going back there.
Yeah, that was painful. Not going to do that.
Yeah. Exactly. Lois, this has been a great conversation. How can people connect with you online and pick up a copy of Moral Code and maybe learn more about what you've been doing with children in STEM?
Well, Moral Code is available in ebook and an audio as well as print, and you can find it really anywhere that you buy a book. I encourage people whenever possible to go through their independent bookstores or bookshop.org. But Amazon has all of the formats as well. And then my author page is loismelbourne.com, and my nonprofit is My Future Story, so it's myfuturestory.com.
Awesome. I'll link those in the show notes too at geekleader.com so people can click through and follow you and connect online and hopefully pick up a copy of your book. Lois, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to. Click on their links and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. And make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.